Right, a measure of calm has been restored in the press room after all the friendly chatter. I think we can start today's midday. I'd like to welcome you to this midday live and on EBS. Today is Thursday, the 4th of May. Je voudrais commencer nos annonces en vous rappelant que les ministres de l'Emploi et des Affaires sociales se réunissent aujourd'hui à Stockholm pour le deuxième jour de leur réunion informelle. La vice-présidente Dubravka Šuica et le commissaire participent à cette réunion au nom de la Commission. Les ministres discutent de l'écart entre les compétences et les besoins dans ces temps de transition. Ils discutent également de comment assurer des systèmes de protection sociale solides en tenant compte de la transition démographique. La vice-présidente Šuica présentera l'initiative de la Commission en matière de démographie, justement. Pour sa part, le commissaire Schmidt présentera un rapport préparé pour la Commission par le groupe de haut niveau, présidé par l'ancienne commissaire Anna Diamantopoulou. Le rapport traite de la mise en œuvre de la recommandation sur l'accès à la protection recommendations on access to social protection for workers and self-employed people. The Commission will take part in a press briefing after the Council at 5 o'clock, and as always we ask you to keep all questions related to these subjects for the Commissioner's press briefing.
Let me welcome a group of visitors that join us today. It is a group of content creators that are in Brussels on a study visit called Exploring You. Welcome, and I hope that you enjoy your visit and your experience here in the press room. That is all for our announcement today. Let me open the floor to your questions. I have a few questions in the chat, so I'll go there. On the platform, I mean, Alain. Alain, si tu peux connecter ta caméra et ton micro. Press speak, as they say. Alors, nous semblons avoir un problème avec la connexion. Non, voilà, ça y est.
Oh, here he is.
On te voit, mais on t'entend pas, Alain.
We can see you, but we can't hear you.
Alors, je propose que
in that case,
revenions vers toi une fois que tu auras résolu tes questions de connexion. Ah, c'est bon maintenant.
Oh, now we can hear you, apparently.
C'est difficile parfois. Merci de votre patience.
Okay, thank you for sticking with me. President Zelensky has just given a speech in The Hague, having visited the International Criminal Court, where he clearly expressed a request to set up a court to judge the crime of aggression against Ukraine. Could you please recall us remind us of the European Union's issue on this question? That's a question for Christian Vigant, who's coming up.
Oui, merci pour cette question.
Well, thank you for that question.
Je peux peut-être rappeler un peu de
Perhaps I could just remind you
fait dans ce contexte.
Of the backgrounds to this.
Nous avons proposé un papier des options.
We came forward with an options paper
à fin de l'année dernière,
at the end of last year.
Où nous avons proposé
And in this options paper, we suggested that we should have a discussion with member states and with our international partners on setting up this kind of special court or special tribunal. Now, since then, a core group on the establishment of a special tribunal has been set up, and it has already met several times. This core group is made up of 18 member states, and also Australia, Canada, Liechtenstein, Japan, and the USA and the UK. Now, in this context, I could also remind you
pendant une conférence à Lviv, il y a
There was a conference in Lviv a few weeks ago.
The special prosecution section était établi.
They set up a special prosecution section for the crimes in question, and a body has been set up within Eurojust in The Hague. And we hope that this instrument will be effective when it comes to investigating these crimes before the summer. This is an important stage, really. This is an instrument which will prepare potential future cases to be brought before a court or a tribunal, or indeed in front of a national court. That's all I can say for the moment.
Merci. Donc peut-être pour résumer, il y a
Thank you for that summary.
Deux pistes de travail.
There are two
le procureur,
pillars of work at the moment. First is on the prosecutor's office and all the work which has to be done to investigate those crimes and to come up with evidence. And the second point is the options paper on what we do next and how we set up or find a solution in order to have a court or a tribunal where these
Alain, tu as une question de suivi.
Cases can be judged. Alan, you had a follow-up question.
Décidément, nous avons un problème avec ta connexion aujourd'hui.
Alan seems to be having trouble today.
Là, est-ce que tu m'entends là?
Vas-y, oui.
Oui, juste pour être clair, est-ce que je peux conclure?
Okay, just to be clear, can I conclude from that the European Union has decided to push for setting up a tribunal to prosecute this crime of aggression? That's my first question. And the second one is, will any such court or tribunal take the form of an entirely international court? Or could there or should there be some kind of hybrid court? What do you mean by hybrid court? I mean, there are several models possible. It could be a tribunal where you have international judges and national judges from the country which is the subject of the aggression. And in this case, it would be Ukrainian judges.
Merci. Question.
Well, all I can say for the moment is just repeat our position. We have set out these options, passed them on to member states and to our international partners. Discussions are underway. There's been discussions between the ministers of justice of the countries involved. And as for your second question, I can remind you what Commissioner Reinders said. I think this was after the last JHA Council, where he said there are three options. And one option is to find a solution with the ICJ, and the second solution would be setting up a special tribunal, and the third one would be a hybrid court. As I say, discussions continue within the core group, and that's where we stand for the moment.
Donc, comme on a présenté les options,
well, as we presented the options, that means we can discuss the range of possibilities. We haven't come out in favour of any particular option just yet. And to come back for your first question, yes, indeed, it is all about investigating the crime of oppression, in this case, Russia against Ukraine.
Christian, sur ce sujet?
Christian, on this subject?
Oui, pour mon entendement, yes. Donc on a des options. So since we have these options, if I've understood it correctly, it would be a court, international court. Of course, the Americans have not ratified the agreement. I'm just wondering what's blocking this from happening, because we do have the Ukrainian president who's already been in The Hague and is pressing for this. And here we say we have options, and we're discussing these things, but not everyone is involved. What are the stopping points? Is it policy, is it politics? Is there any chance that one day we will have this tribunal that could possibly be effective in bringing to heel a country that have no real international, that don't really respect international rules? Yes, this is a very complex question, legally speaking. And that's why, first off, we need to take our time with this. And of course, in the world of diplomacy, you need to have negotiations. And as I said, it's not that nothing's been happening. We are having serious discussions. I think there's already been 2 or 3 meetings. I'll have to verify that number, but there's been 2 or 3 meetings of this group since the beginning of the year. That's where we're at the moment on this subject. And just as well to remind you as well, the International Centre for Prosecution of Crimes of this type is also very important, because they have a very concrete means of preparing cases like this. So that's kind of the first step in getting justice before going to international courts.
Merci.
Thank you very much.
Je ne vois qu'une seule
I don't see anyone else, only one hand raised at the moment.
De ceci ou d'un autre sujet. Nous
I'm not sure if it's about this subject or not, but we're going to Mose.
Yes, thank you very much, Eric. I think it's linked to the war in Ukraine. And as we all know, the Commission presented yesterday a new proposal, let's say regulation called ASAP for the ramping up of capacity to produce ammunition to support Ukraine. It was presented by Commissioner Breton yesterday, as we know, and that focused on track 3 in the more medium term, track 3 of the Commission's plan to supply ammunition and shells to Ukraine. What about track 2, which is supposed to implement it by the European Defence Agency by joint procurement on behalf of the member states? As far as I know, that procurement hasn't started yet. I wonder if you have any updated information, what is causing these delays, or are there any bottlenecks in the procedures? Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mose. I give the floor to Nabila, because indeed there have been updates.
Indeed, and Mose, I really invite you to follow the HRVP's Twitter account, because here you get a lot of information. When yesterday, indeed, he has tweeted about track 2, and he said precisely that in an EU effort to speed up ammunition delivery to Ukraine, the member states have just agreed on the so-called track 2. This will allow the use of 1 billion euros from the European Peace Facility for the joint procurement and help deliver 1 million rounds of ammunition over 12 months.
Thank you very much, Nabila, for this update. I believe that Wehua has a question on this as well. Wehua.
Yes, thank you very much. This is a follow-up. I think it's related to yesterday's development. I mean, EU is talking a lot about ramping up production of ammunition, joint procurement of ammunition, but there is really no talk about diplomacy, negotiation, ceasefire, how to bring an end to the conflict. Does that mean, how long EU is prepared for the conflict? Is it going to prolong the conflict rather than, to seek an end as soon as possible? Is there a solution on the battlefield anyway?
Thank you, Wehua. I think we have answered that question about 100 times here in the press room.
since the conflict has started. So I'm a bit surprised that you're asking it again, to be honest, because you follow us, I know, very, very regularly. And yesterday was about a very specific development, which is ensuring that we can enhance the production capacity for ammunition in Europe in view of the war of aggression that Russia is waging against Ukraine. And now, we have always said that the war can stop tomorrow. And for that, all it needs is for Russia to actually stop the aggression and go back. Secondly, that we are in favor of peace. Obviously, the European Union, by its very nature, is a peace project. And that it is for Ukraine, that is the country that has been attacked, to decide in which conditions it is ready to find peace with Russia. In the meantime, we will continue to support Ukraine in its efforts to defend itself against this aggression. Of course, we are in favor of a peaceful solution to the conflict. In fact, this is a message that President von der Leyen also passed when she was in China recently, and also called on China to take steps in this direction, live up to its responsibilities as a member of the UN Security Council. But in the meantime, it's absolutely evident that we need to make sure that Ukraine has the means to defend itself, and that Europe, for its part, is in a capacity to replenish its stocks of all types of ammunition necessary. Okay, any other questions on foreign affairs for us today? I see one hand raised. Momshil, you have a question on foreign affairs?
Yes.
Go ahead.
Yes, about the so-called track 2. So how was the decision taken? First question, by unanimity or by qualified majority? That's first question. And second question, we know that 4 member states still have to join the project of the European Defence Agency. Is there any sign that at least one of these states will join soon?
Yeah.
On the decision on track 2, I think it was taken by unanimity, but this I will have to. But this is usually the case, huh? No?
You mean in terms of process, or
in terms of process?
Yeah, okay.
That's what,
in terms of process, because you have to ask Council if you want specifics on who voted what. This is not for us to comment on. In terms of process, we will come back to you to check whether it was unanimity or qualified majority. I think it was unanimity, indeed, but we will double check and come back to you on that.
Yes, indeed. Again, Monchel, again, on the EDA project, my understanding is that so far there were 24 EU member states and Norway that have signed, if things have not changed so far. But it is for you to ask member states if they're willing or not to continue join or sign the EDA project arrangement.
Thank you, Nabila. Other questions on foreign affairs for us today? Augustine.
Yes, thank you. It is on foreign affairs, but I'm not sure if Peter is there or Nabila can help. It's on the last meeting of high level at the dialogue between Kosovo and Serbia.
Can I interrupt you, Augustine, 1 second? Sorry. I hope we didn't cut you off. No, sorry. No. We cut you off by mistake. I just wanted to say, I think there are some other questions on Ukraine. So, Augustine, we'll come back to you immediately once we've finished the chapter on Ukraine. Mindaugas, I suppose your question is related to this or to the ASAP proposal yesterday.
It's on Russian sanctions. Is this the right time?
Yeah, we will take them. It's on the same general issue, so go ahead.
Okay, good. It's on Russia sanctions evasion, because I was looking at the statistics for my TV report, and it's quite surprising. I know it was discussed not one time in this press room, but trade with some Asian and especially Central Asian countries, which are considered to be helping Russia to bypass sanctions, has doubled last year. So my question is, could you give us an update what the Commission is doing about this? And would the EU and the Commission would think about additional sanctions to those countries and those entities who help to bypass current sanctions on Russia? Thank you so much.
Thank you. That would be more a question for Dan, so I'll call Dan to the podium. Thanks, Nabila.
Thanks very much, Mindaugas, and I think I've answered this question before as well. So I think you know well, as a starting point, that the circumvention of sanctions is illegal. That's a very, very important starting point. It is illegal to participate knowingly, intentionally in the circumvention of sanctions in the European Union. We engage very, very closely with all member states to make sure that EU sanctions are implemented fully, that we work hard with them to overcome any issues that may arise in the implementation of sanctions, and that progressively we introduce more measures to crack down on the circumvention of sanctions. So, for example, you might remember in the 8th sanctions package, we introduced a new listing criterion which would allow us to sanction persons involved in the circumvention of sanctions. You know, for example, that we propose to harmonise criminal offences and penalties for the violation of sanctions, and there's a whole range of other things that I can mention here. So first and foremost, cracking down on the circumvention of sanctions is a priority. It is illegal in the European Union. And of course, outside the European Union, this is also an issue. As you said, we are seeing the trade flows of certain goods going to certain third countries. We have an EU sanctions envoy, David O'Sullivan, who is travelling, meeting with people, meeting with his counterparts in these third countries to understand a bit better about these trade flows. So I think that all put together, these are incredibly important, incredibly powerful ways in which we can ensure the implementation of our sanctions and to crack down on their avoidance. With regards to upcoming sanctions packages, which was your second question, I believe, as usual, I'm not going to go into the details of what we may or may not propose, but stay tuned.
Thank you. Any other questions on sanctions evasion, or more generally on sanctions, apart from preparations for possible further sanctions, which we never comment on here in the press room? No. So, Augustine, we come back to you. And apologies again for earlier. Go ahead.
No problem. My question is about the last meeting of the Prime Minister of Kosovo and President of Serbia. The so-called managing team presented the first draft that was rejected by Kosovo on the creation of association of the municipality of Serb majority municipality. I have two questions. First, because EU for months, if not years, was asking Kosovo to come with the proposal, and we saw that coordinator of this team came out and spoke to the press together with the chief negotiator of Serbia. So question is this team from Kosovo or from Serbia, and in which delegation the managing team was? And the second question is on the decision of Minister of Kosovo to dismiss this team. So did this team finish its duties by presenting the first draft? Thank you.
Thank you, Agustin. A lot of questions. I will try to tackle them one by one. So on your first question, whether the management team was part of which delegation it was a part, well, it was a self-standing delegation. They have been invited to come to join the meeting for one point of the high-level meeting on Tuesday to present the draft statute. They were specifically invited for the presentation of this statute, of this draft, and they were not part of neither the Serbian delegation nor the Kosovo delegation. Regarding the composition of the team, this is in line with the dialogue agreements. The parties have agreed on the composition of the management team, whereas the members of the management team have been proposed by Serbia and officially appointed by Kosovo. And regarding the third question about the decision to disband the team, well, the dialogue agreements clearly state that the management team should be in place until the statute of the association community of Serb-majority municipalities is adopted. What happened on Tuesday was that the management team proposed and submitted the first draft. That means we kick-started the process, and the process is not finished. Therefore, the decision to dissolve the management team violates the letter and spirit of the dialogue agreement, and any decision regarding the management team needs to be agreed in the framework of the EU-facilitated dialogue.
Thank you. Any other questions on this particular issue? Christian.
Oui, je voudrais savoir combien de temps
Yes, I'd like to know
la Commission européenne et M. Borrell
how
vont
long
accepter
the
que
Commission and
les
Mr.
délégations
Borrell will accept
kosovars et leurs dirigeants
that
se
the
réunissent à
Kosovo
Bruxelles,
delegation and
permettent à
the
M.
leaders
Borrell d'annoncer des accords et
meet in
aussitôt rentrer
Brussels,
chez eux disent qu'il n'y a pas d'accord.
say they reached agreement, then go home and say there was no agreement.
C'est absolument
This
pas
happened
quelles sont les
last time.
positions des uns et
We
des
don't
autres.
really know what
Et on est
anybody's
dans un
position is
espèce de
anymore.
jeu de miroir,
You seem to be in a sort of game of
complètement
smoke and
désarçonnant
mirrors,
pour le moindre commentateur.
which is very disorienting for any
progresse?
kind of commentator.
Pas,
Is progress being made or not?
Pour accepter
And how long will you put up with this situation? Without saying to them, do you want something or not?
Merci Christian. La vie est très complexe. Le dialogue
Life is complex. Dialogue is even more complex.
La Union européenne, le haut représentant de l'Union européenne,
The HRVP
est chargé avec la facilitation
is
du dialogue.
in charge of facilitating dialogue.
La résolution des
We
Nations
announced
Unies
the
sur
UN
le rôle
resolution
du représentant de
on
l'Union
the role
européenne dans
of the
la médiation, dans la
HRVP
facilitation du
in
dialogue.
mediation
Et nous
and
allons
facilitating dialogue,
continuer
and we will continue
dans cette
along
rôle,
that path.
jusqu'à l'objectif final.
We will continue along that path until we reach our destination, which is a final comprehensive agreement on the normalization of agreements between Kosovo and Serbia.
Sur la condition, naturellement, que
Obviously,
la Serbie et Kosovo
with the precondition that Kosovo and Serbia take part in that dialogue.
À cause des demandes
we are
de la Serbie et Kosovo.
doing our job in trying to reach an agreement. We are facilitators, but we aren't commentators. So we will continue playing our role to help both partners to find a solution. Because if there's no solution, then there's no question of the European perspective for Serbia and Kosovo.
Linguistique de Peter, avoir le sens de la formule dans sa langue natale, c'est déjà pas facile. Mais
let me just say how well speaks French, finding
Alors, Mose, you have a question on this.
plays on words in his fourth foreign language is pretty good.
Okay. Thanks again, Eric. This is all related questions to this Belgrade-Pristina dialogue. I think there was an agreement last time between the two leaders to intensify the efforts to find missing persons in the war which took place about 15 years ago. And according to the statement, I think more than 6,000 persons went missing, and out of them, about 1,600 cases are still unresolved. I understand that the two countries must have a list of those persons, but I wonder also if the Commission knows anything about the breakdown of the statistics by nationality, because I understand that this is an important issue in the framework of the agreement which EU has proposed in order to achieve normalization between Serbia and Kosovo, right?
Thank you, Mose. Just small clarification to make it more precise. I mean, the persons missing, or the cases of persons missing, is not 600 but 6,000, and yes, indeed, 1,622 remain still unsolved. The European Commission is not the central registry of these people. Of course, I mean, these people belong to a certain party. They have to certain party, not political party, but to certain administration. So it's obvious that the exact breakdown is in the possession of both sides, Serbia and Kosovo. So this is a question for them. But of course, we are aware because we are working with the information submitted and provided by the two parties. But this is, again, it's very important that the meeting on Tuesday managed to bring a consensus on this declaration, that we were able to see President of Serbia, Prime Minister of Kosovo to agree on this declaration and continue the work on practical steps. This is very important, and that is also a proof that the dialogue is bringing results. Maybe not as fast as we would wish, and the people affected by this would wish, but it is moving forward, and this is exactly why are we doing this and why are we continuing this, because in the end, the dialogue is about finding solutions for people on the ground, to solve their situation, which is not optimal, and to give them also a perspective of a better future, because the European perspective, of course, offers a better future for these people.
Thank you. I will take one last question on this issue before moving on. Augustine, you wanted to come back to this again.
Yes, thank you. It's follow-up. Thank you for giving me another opportunity. Peter, as a facilitator, can you help us, please, to understand whether agreement in its entirety really exists or not? I asked 2 days ago President of Serbia, Vučić, whether he agreed on all points of the agreement, and he said no. And he said that he made it clear to Mr. Lajčák and to Mr. Borrell that he will not implement all parts of the agreement. He will implement majority, but in no way he accepted everything from the agreement. So because we don't have a signed agreement, we have something that you published with the points. Since we don't have a written signed agreement, we have to trust the words, and the words are not the same. I mean, it's not possible that Mr. Borrell and Mr. Vučić are saying the same thing, and they both are right. So can you clarify whether really the agreement in its entirety and implementation annex really exists or not? And the second, on the missing persons, both sides confirmed that vast majority of them are Kosovo Albanians. So out of 1,600, over 1,000 are Kosovo Albanians. And Serbia has archives what the army did during the war. So do you really believe that there will be a sincere readiness from all sides, because missing persons are from all different ethnic groups, will be ready to find the fate of those people, because for the families it's not the past, it's the present for them until they find the truth? Thank you.
Thank you. I identified like 3 questions in this. Okay, so the first one, does the agreement exist? Yes, it exists. I mean, it was issued, and not only issued, it was agreed, explicitly agreed by the parties. It's in the documents which we published after the meeting in Ohrid. The statement by High Representative says very clearly, the statement approved, seen and agreed by both President Vučić and Kosovo Prime Minister Kurti, that we have an agreement and we have an implementation annex to this agreement. And the parties committed to work on the full implementation. They committed that the full implementation and the track record of how they are doing in the implementation will be now directly linked to their accession process. That means concrete consequences, political and financial, for not delivering or for delivering. So this is very clear. And again, regardless whether something was signed or not, there is a political commitment captured in the statement by the High Representative, which explicitly says that this statement was agreed by the 2 political leaders. Regarding whether we believe or not in a sincere efforts, of course we have to, otherwise we would not be doing this work. The work of the facilitator, the EU, the High Representative as the facilitator, and the EUSR for the dialogue, for the Belgrade-Pristina dialogue, is driven by the tasking, by asking from both sides and by the tasking from the EU and the UN to help them to find a way forward, because a way forward means reconciliation, overcoming the issues from the past, focusing on normalization of the relations and starting to build a normal, proper European future. If we would not believe in their ability to be able to proceed in this spirit, then we would not be doing it. If they are able, well, I mean, we try to help them to be able, because it entails hard work, very tough decisions, and very tough decisions when it comes to compromises. They need to find consensus and compromise. This is tough, but the responsibility ultimately rests on them, because they do it for the benefit of their people. So yes, we believe that they will be able at some point to go into it sincerely, honestly, effectively, to deliver on all the commitments made until now. The dialogue runs for more than 10 years. There have been a number of commitments which still are pending. They need to be delivered on and implemented. And to deliver also on what was agreed in February in Brussels, the agreement, and in March in Ohrid, the implementation. Annex.
Thank you. I will now close the Foreign Affairs chapter because time is really passing by. Thank you, Peter. And I go to David, who has been waiting for the floor for a long time.
Thank you, Eric. I would have a question on migration. Two questions, in fact, related. The first one, the Italian government has decided to send the Geo Barents to La Spezia port, which is quite far from where migrants were saved some days ago. We are talking about 336 migrants. And this is a consequence of a decree adopted by the Italian government at the beginning of the year. First question, do you have any comment on this decision by the Italian authorities? Second question, the decree was criticized by a lot of international institutions. The last one is the Special Rapporteur of Human Rights Defenders at the UN, in a report published yesterday. Are you evaluating this decree? Have you anything to say on this decree? Thank you.
Thank you. I believe we've been here before. Anita.
Indeed. Thank you, David. We have been here before, and our position stays the same in terms of saving lives. We have said it repeatedly in terms of both the moral duty and the legal obligation for member states under international law. At the same time, we have also repeatedly said that member states are the ones responsible for the search and rescue, also for the designation of the port of safety. And we have also been in touch as regards our work when it comes to the challenges on the Central Mediterranean with the action plan put ahead, but also on the dedicated actions in the search and rescue contact group, which are looking into 4 main sections, which also include the need for a better cooperation and coordination between all actors and also situational awareness. Mm-hmm.
Follow-up.
Yes, thank you. I know very well that we have been here before. On the 9th of November 2022, when the Italian government decided to send another vessel, it was the Ocean Viking in France, to Marseille, which is near La Spezia, you published a statement. It was quite impressive from your side, stating that the European Commission calls for the immediate disembarkation at the nearest place of safety. Why it doesn't apply right now to other vessels? Thank you.
Thank you, David. Indeed, we have made that statement in the view of the context and the situation on the Ocean Viking. And we have also said that it is for the member states to designate which is the nearest port of safety. It is not for us here from the podium to do so.
I'm afraid, David, that's all that we can say on this issue. Does that mean you have another follow-up? Hold on. Related to migration? Okay, let me see first if there are others who have questions on migration. Mindaugas, and then I'll come back to you.
Thank you for the floor. Once again, I have a question on Lithuanian migrant pushback law, which was discussed in this newsroom last week. On Friday, Anita, you said that the Commission is evaluating a Lithuanian parliament law which allows migrant pushback. So have you got any update on this? And if not, when could we expect the evaluation of the Commission's position on this? And my second question is connected to that, because in that law, there was an exception included for migrants who flee armed conflicts. But now we are hearing that Lithuanian government is removing this exemption, and all irregular migrants who try to cross the border illegally, it does not matter if they flee for economic reasons, war, or any other issues, will be treated the same. So do you have a comment on this, and does this comply with Commission's position on migration? Thank you, Anita.
Thank you, Mindaugas. Indeed, we are in touch with the Lithuanian authorities, and we are assessing how to comply, how the laws comply with the EU acquis, and also specifically with the judgment of the Court of Justice. I do not have any updates since the laws have not yet entered into force, and since the passing was also very recent. But as soon as we will have updates, I will be happy to further inform you.
And I think, Mindaugas, what you have said yourself in your question shows how delicate this is, since you seem to be indicating that the law might still change. So it shows that it is important to have a final, stable version of any piece of legislation before we conclude any evaluation. So I come back to David with another issue on migration.
Yes, it's more broad issue. Today, in the premise of the European University Institute in Florence, the Italian police, so the Italian authorities basically, removed some posters of the EU refugee initiative, and those posters read, "Refugees welcome." Today it's the first day of the State of the Union at the European University Institute, so a lot of commissioner will be there, even Italian minister, but I think that this case is telling something on the attitude of the Italian interior minister, who has competence on the Italian police. And I see some issues on freedom of expression, freedom of academy, maybe also the status, if there is a special status for the European University Institute. Will you let this Italian government to do whatever it wants, as you are doing on the NGOs' vessels, violating international law, violating European law, and so on? And until when? What's your red line on this issue? Thank you.
Well, first of all, you're talking about an incident we are not aware of, David. So it's very easy for you to come here and to mention to us an issue knowing full well that there's a good chance that we're not aware of it. So obviously we cannot comment on something which we have not been informed about, but we will certainly look into it and come back to you. Now, you know full well that the Commission is here to make European legislation be respected by member states, and that we have procedures to do so. And that we have shown that that is what we do. These processes are sometimes complex, sometimes they take time, but we play our institutional role. And I'm not going to comment generally about a comment that you are making about the actions of a government in general. We act based on very specific EU legislation. This is what we do. And as to the incident which you have mentioned, we will certainly look into it now that you have made us aware of it. Christian.
Oui, tout à l'heure, Peter a dit qu'effectivement la vie était difficile. Je voulais savoir si vous aviez le sentiment que l'Europe est de plus en plus difficilement acceptée par les gouvernements qui opposent ce club. L'incident dont a fait référence David, c'est une multiplicité d'actes de différence vis-à-vis de l'Europe. Il ne date pas d'hier. Le président du Conseil italien a retiré le drapeau de l'Europe, d'autres qui disent que de toute façon l'Europe n'a pas de drapeau. Je veux dire, il y a une espèce de confusion qui est en train de se créer dans l'Union européenne entre les gens qui croient vraiment en l'Union européenne et les gens qui ne croient pas ou qui l'accommodent à leur sauce comme ils ont envie. Alors je veux savoir si ça vous préoccupe aussi.
Or, as you
on va
say,
voir et on va vérifier,
you simply say we'll see and we'll verify and we'll talk about it the next midday. If you can come back to it and ask the question again, because I will say I will.
Je pense que tu confonds
I think that you're confusing my response
avec une attitude
with an attitude,
générale politique de la Commission. Moi, je réponds sur un cas précis dont je n'ai pas conscience,
I'm talking about very precise cases
sur lequel je n'ai
here.
pas d'informations.
A case I didn't have any information about.
Soyons clairs.
La
vie n'a jamais été facile pour l'Union européenne. Et
Life has never been easy
et tu devrais bien passer pour savoir depuis le temps que tu es ici. Si je regarde les sondages d'opinion Eurobaromètre sur l'acceptation de l'Europe par les citoyens européens, ils sont l'acceptation de l'action de l'Union européenne est bien meilleure qu'elle ne l'a été à d'autres époques. Le projet de l'Union européenne est un projet qui est né il y a 70 ans.
Born, 60, 70 years ago?
Complètement neuf en termes historiques. Et qui, par sa nature même, demande à l'ensemble des citoyens européens et aux gouvernements et aux dirigeants des efforts pour sortir de cadres nationaux qui, eux, ont parfois des centaines, voire mille, si je peux parler de certains États, certains pays, dont celui que je connais le mieux. Donc, croire que c'est une partie de plaisir de faire en sorte que nous fassions constamment respecter l'ensemble des règles et des législations européennes serait extrêmement simpliste et naïf. C'est bien pour ça qu'il existe des procédures. Maintenant, qu'est-ce que moi je vois? Nous avons derrière nous une période extrêmement difficile d'un point de vue sanitaire. La santé étant un des domaines de compétences très fortes des États membres. Les États membres ont accepté et ont coopéré avec l'Union européenne et ont en fait transmis à l'Union européenne des compétences qu'ils n'avaient jamais données à l'Union européenne. Et c'est cela qui a permis de sortir de la crise sanitaire dans laquelle nous étions.
COVID crisis that we found ourselves in. And of course, there were actions taken by the member states individually as well. So how do I see things? I see the member states are currently undergoing a European recovery.
Que tout le monde aurait considéré comme absolument impossible.
That everyone thought was completely impossible before we actually did it.
Ce plan, il a permis à l'Union européenne d'éviter la récession et de sortir par le haut de la crise économique qui aurait pu survenir si nous n'avions pas agi en raison du Covid. Qu'est-ce que je vois? Quand la Russie a agressé l'Ukraine, l'Union européenne a fait bloc. Complètement.
Russia attacked Ukraine, the European Union rallied together.
Et que dans un contexte particulièrement difficile,
in a particularly difficult context,
nous avons pris des décisions
we have taken
complètement historiques
which have been
en termes de soutien à l'Ukraine, en termes de
supporting Ukraine, in terms of sanctions against Russia, in terms of welcoming migrants.
Qu'est-ce que je vois par ailleurs, c'est que nous sommes en train de renforcer notre industrie de défense. Un domaine régalien par excellence.
Which is a sector which is
historically excellent. Bien sûr qu'il y a des difficultés sur la migration.
And of course there will always be difficulties when it comes to immigration.
C'est un des dossiers politiquement les plus sensibles.
This is one of the most politically sensitive
Est-ce que la Commission fait tout ce qu'elle peut pour que nous arrivions à un accord? Oui. Et vous le savez.
But we will come to an agreement and you know it well.
Mais il ne faut pas confondre deux choses.
And you can't confuse different things. You can't
qui, lorsqu'on le regarde en termes historiques, est absolument extraordinaire.
Which in terms of historical terms is absolutely extraordinary.
Des difficultés, Christian.
And difficulties, there's always going to be difficulties. You know yourself.
Est-ce qu'on doit dire lorsqu'il y a une
What are you going to say that the second there's a difficulty that we're going to simply give up the ghost?
Si la Commission européenne fait ça,
if the European Union were going to do that,
nous n'avancerons pas.
well, then we would never make any
La
progress.
Commission, elle travaille, et
The European
Peter vient de donner un
Commission, Peter has just given an extremely important example from
elle
this
travaille
point
sur
of
les
view.
dossiers les plus
We
difficiles,
work on some of the most
avec une patience
difficult
et une détermination
issues
qui ne
with
fléchit
patience,
jamais.
with determination, and we never
Le
flinch.
genre de questions que tu poses, on l'a eu sur l'euro.
The question
Pendant
you
des
asked
décennies,
about the euro, for example.
il n'y aura jamais de monnaie unique.
For
C'est un
decades,
projet
there was
impossible.
never
Personne n'en
a
veut.
single currency. Everyone thought it was impossible. No one
La
wanted
monnaie
it.
unique est maintenant une des
And the single
monnaies de
currency now
réserve les plus importantes
is one of
au niveau
the
international.
most important reserve
Donc moi,
currencies in the world.
Aie un petit peu plus confiance dans notre capacité
So we do
de
have
faire
confidence
avancer le
in our
projet
ability
sur
to
le
make
moyen terme,
progress
et quelles
in
que
the
soient les
medium
difficultés
term,
du quotidien.
no matter what the difficulties of daily life are.
Excuse-moi, je ne vais pas faire un grand débat.
I don't want to start a big debate.
Je traîne ici.
You're right, I've been here quite some time, and what I do see is a regression in terms of the values which are at the bedrock of the European project. You said that we were united against Russian aggression against Ukraine. We had a big plan, yes, but what I see is the values, the European values and the image of the European Union in regression. We have numerous coalition governments now with anti-European parties which are extreme right.
La Commission proteste.
Seems even the Commission is
donc, je voulais te dire, est-ce qu'à un moment donné, on a créé un commissaire qui était chargé du way of life, du mode de vie européen et des valeurs? Est-ce que vous allez réagir à ce genre de choses-là? Pas sur le point spécifique qu'a soulevé David, on verra si par la suite ça s'est vraiment réalisé, mais est-ce que vous allez être plus pugnace pour faire respecter les valeurs et non pas dire après tout, on tombe dessus parce qu'on a besoin de compromis sur les plans de relance et la grosse tirelire qu'est l'Union européenne? Parce que si l'Union européenne c'est une grosse tirelire, alors elle n'a plus de valeur et elle n'a plus de sens.
If the European Union continues to compromise with no values, then there's no point to the Union.
Absolument passionnant. Le socle des valeurs de
Of
l'Union
course, the
européenne,
bedrock of the European Union is the rule of law and democracy. And the Commission, by its very nature, needs to maintain its role in ensuring respect of legislation.
Tu dis que l'image de l'Union européenne
and you were about the image of the European Union.
Excuse-moi. Regarde le nombre de pays qui veulent rentrer dans l'Union
européenne.
We
look at the amount of countries who want to join the European Union. Look at the protests in Georgia. We all saw the images of that woman with the European flag on her shoulders.
Tous les pays des Balkans occidentaux
all of the Western Balkans countries are looking to join the European Union. Ukraine wants to join the European Union.
Peut-être que nous sommes plus pessimistes que le reste du monde, Christian.
Perhaps we're more pessimistic or optimistic than the rest of the world. But we are faced with a world which is particularly complicated, which is particularly difficult to navigate, and the European Union continues to be an example in this world. Democracy is something you need to build on every single day. And then you were to criticize some of our actions. That's absolutely fantastic. But at the same time, it shows that we are living in a democratic system and that we are here to respond to your questions as best we can.
Nous avançons toujours aussi vite que vous le souhaiteriez.
Sometimes we don't make the progress as fast as you would like us to, and that's absolutely the case. But we have a role to play, and we're not the only ones playing this role. We all have our responsibility, including the member states, who are united around the council table. We also have the authorities in the member states.
Dans chaque État membre,
because the rule of law is based in every member state.
Il y a dans chaque État
in every state there are institutions which are there in order to ensure respect of the law.
C'est l'ensemble du système.
And it is the entirety of the system that needs to function.
Je le répète.
And I will repeat that no matter what your opinion is, and you have a right to your opinion, what I see is that the European Union in which I live and in which I work, and have been working for over 30 years, has made progress, is growing in the right way,
qu'elle a intégré un nombre très très important de pays
has integrated a large number of countries under conditions that were absolutely not at all easy. So I do think we are going in the right direction. Yes, we do have difficulties on a daily basis and we're continuing to work on these always. Thank you.
Bien. Après ce débat passionnant,
good. After that very passionate debate, I now give the floor over to the lady here in the middle.
Hi, Ida Sanchez for Euronews. I have a question regarding the recommendation to combat online privacy. I wanted to know why is it set up as a non-binding instrument despite some MEPs and stakeholders asking for a binding instrument? Why was this form approved?
Okay, thank you very much. Johannes.
Quite a hard cut. Thank you very much for the question. Yes, so this is a topic which is very important because it creates a lot of losses to right holders, and it's also an area where action needs to be taken very quickly because the value is in the streaming, and once the streaming is over, the interest is very much lower or almost inexistent afterwards, so it needs to be tackled very quickly during the streaming. So it's a phenomenon that we see actually increasing, and this is why we have adopted the recommendation. What the recommendation does, maybe first of all, it encourages the member states and the market players to increase their efforts to combat piracy or unauthorized streaming of live events. So this is sports, but also other live events. It builds on existing legislation. On the one hand, the Digital Services Act, which, as you know, is enforced and now enters into application for the very large online platforms and large online search engines from end of August, and for the all others then February next year, and the Enforcement Directive. And so the recommendation provides indications on how the remedies which are already available in EU law can be used in the specific case of live events, which is, as I said, a very specific case. It also enhances the close cooperation between different market players, including right holders and online intermediaries, and additionally, national authorities are encouraged to cooperate within a new dedicated network, which will be set up by the European Observatory on Infringements of Intellectual Property Rights, which is EUIPO, and we will work together with EUIPO on this. So your question, why is it only a recommendation? This is the question that you asked. As I just said, this builds on existing tools which are available. So we believe that we have tools in place to tackle this problem, but we need to see how these will work out. And the DSA is only entering into application, so it's way too early now to come with additional legislation. We need to see how this will work. The DSA provides tools to tackle this. So this is why we have said we will now look into this, and we will review at the latest in 2.5 years how things go, and then we can take it forward or take another decision. For the moment, this is what we decided to do.
Thank you very much. Any other questions on digital issues for Johannes? No? Yes, I give you the floor. If you could present yourself.
My name is Andrzej Wyrwiński. I'm correspondent for Polsat News. This is my first time. I have the question about yesterday's decision of Hungarian Parliament. Does it mean that unblocking of EU funds is a question of days, of weeks?
I believe we've just had a very long technical briefing specifically on this issue, but if you want an on-the-record comment, I will ask Christian to give you an answer. Were you at the technical briefing?
No.
No, okay. It's your first time, so perfectly understandable. Christian.
Yes, still 10.
No, they're going to...
Okay. Still time to learn about the usefulness of technical briefings sometimes. But I'm very happy to give you an on-the-record comment, of course. We take note of the vote in the Hungarian Parliament on the judicial reforms seeking to implement the 4 judicial independence milestones of the Hungarian RRP. This is a good step in the right direction. It is, however, not the end of the process. Further steps need to follow. We will now analyze the laws adopted, which also still need to enter into force, and also it is for Hungary to prepare the accompanying implementation steps foreseen in the Hungarian Recovery and Resilience Plan. The formal preliminary assessment by the Commission under the RRF will only be made afterwards, in the context of Hungary's first payment request, once all super milestones have been effectively implemented. So in short, no, this is not the end. This is now still an ongoing process, and further steps need to follow.
Thank you very much. Before we close, any other question for Christian on this issue or on rule of law? No, so thank you very much for your participation, and see you tomorrow for the last midday of the week.